Well, hello, my name is Clay Lamb, and I'm the host today on Ask the Chimney Sweep. And before we jump into the podcast, I wanted to take a couple of minutes and answer a couple of questions that have come into our blog post, Ask the Chimney Sweep.
Somebody here says that they have a fireplace, but it's just way too smoky for them.
You probably have actually tightened that house up. You may have put more insulation in the attic. You may have put some new storm windows in, or new windows that are much, much more efficient. You may have put a new Gen Air range in there for mama, for yourself to cook on. And what does it have? A fan. You're having improper air balance throughout the whole house. And also Susie Q's fan up in the bathroom. Let's put it this way. Now it's been replaced and it sucks like crazy. You'll pull the carpet off on the bedroom floor. What you've done, you've changed the balance in the house, and you've got to take that into consideration. And this fireplace is saying, I want some air, and sucking it right down the chimney, or won't allow that smoke to go up the chimney, Randolph.
So what would be a good preventive measure to correct that?
Well, first off, you have to see if there is a negative pressure. You can actually put a candle in there and see if it's actually blowing the air out. You probably know it right away, or see smoke rolling out. I would like what they call a smoke guard. That's the first thing I'd do. I'd change the size of this thing if I could. What you're doing is proportionally scaling it down for the flue tile.
This is a product that actually just makes the chimney smaller.
That's exactly right. You remember that. Yeah. We'll put a link to that. It's an affiliate of ours. That we don't carry these things, folks. We just use affiliate marketing. It works better for us. Prices seem really good, the ones we make affiliates with. I like the smoke guard by High C. What it is, they're 4 or 6 inch, and I like the black one. The reason I like the black one is this, Randall. What it does, it matches so much into the firebox. The brassy one looked good years ago. I don't think that's what I'd do. I'd use the black one up at the top. It's just kind of an expanded metal. It's a piece of metal, 2 pieces, and it's on a tray, and it spreads right to left. We actually show the link in this thing with a picture of it if we can get this on our show notes. You're in show notes, folks. They're great. And what you want to do is go to AsktheChimneySweep.com and look for this week's episode, and we'll give you an idea where to get this and how to get it, and give you an idea what it works. And I think we can actually get a video of that too for them, Randall.
Oh, should be no problem at all.
Hello, folks. Thanks for joining me today on Ask the Chimney Sweep. Join me, my friends, as we're traveling over to Plainfield, Indiana. That's just southwest of Indianapolis. We're headed to the Chimney Safety Institute of America's home office, and we're going to visit with my friend Ashley Eldridge. Join me. Buckle up. Here we go.
He saw very quickly that he wasn't going to be able to get as dirty as he needed to. So.
Oh, you had to make it real dirty, huh?
Exactly. I took a 5-pound bag of charcoal.
No. Well, hello and welcome back to Ask the Chimney Sweep. This is Clay Lamb, your host, and I am with a friend of mine, Ashley Eldridge. From where are you actually home from?
I was born in Richmond, Virginia.
How did you end up here?
I came here for the job.
It's a good reason.
Yep.
Now, just so our guests know that you were a chimney sweep in Richmond, weren't you?
That's right. The town I lived in was Ashland. Had a store in the Ashland Hanover Shopping Center, sold Ashley stoves, that sort of stuff.
This is just, sounds like you own the whole city.
Exactly. Well, the really awesome part of that was I couldn't get Ashley stoves because there was a furniture store that had the area. So I called Ashley direct and said, look, my name's Ashley. I'm getting phone calls from all over the country. Why don't you let me support your stoves? And they agreed. So they set me up to sell parts for the stoves, but they wouldn't allow me to sell the stove.
Well, sometimes the aftermarket's better than the forward market.
It was indeed.
Oh, good. Well, congratulations, Ashley. I want to thank you so much for joining us here on Ask the Chimney Sweep. And today, folks, we are sitting in Plainfield, Indiana, which is just southwest of Indianapolis. And the reason we're here, I'm going to let Ashley explain this to you. He is a director up here. What is your official title?
Director of Education.
Okay. And just so our homeowners out there know, and you know, homeowners, that we have probably about 30% of our listeners are service companies, and the other 60-some% are probably homeowners just like you. And that's why I want to join with a friend of mine here, and we're actually celebrating some interesting things up here. Today is Sweeps Week. Ashley, why don't you explain to our listeners what Sweep Week's all about, and when did it start?
It started shortly after the building was built, and we had a factory-built chimney on top of our masonry heater. And Kevin DeLucinet said, that's just not proper. We need something that's more iconic. So he designed the 3 twisted columns that you see on the building today. And that was one of the first year's Sweeps Week's projects.
Just so you know, folks, you'll be able to see this on the video too. We upload this to YouTube, and you're going to see those pictures. You'll probably see it on Ask the Chimney Sweep. program there. So you actually see this twisted, I call it the twisted
The
sister
twisted chimney, yep.
It's pretty amazing. Well, tell us what happened after that, after you got that going.
Well, once we saw how much people enjoyed coming, and they feel like this facility is their own, because everybody invested in it in order to build it. And so this is like Old Home Week. So people come in, and if we need painting or if we need wood split for the coming year or repairs of any sort, they come in prepared to donate their time and do that.
Now, you have service companies from all over the country, don't you?
We do. Actually, we've got a German in here this year who came over specifically to see what Sweeps Week was all about, because part of the camaraderie is what makes this industry so special.
Well, my friends, it's a hoot. I've been here just this afternoon. I know they had a big party last night with a band, and just getting along with some other people you don't see in the industry every day is just really exciting, because you get some exchange, it's that hallway knowledge you learn at the convention. This is what you get a lot of at this meeting right here, this Sweeps Week. I've run into some friends of mine who just live about 90 minutes from me, but I learn a lot from them every time. Ashley, tell me the reason why this place, this training facility is here, and it's state-of-the-art to say the least.
Well, thank you. It is unique. There really isn't another place like this that has a chimney in the back that has 5 functional flues. We do our chimney sweep training here, so the sweeps have an opportunity to train in a facility where if the dust escapes them, like it did for Mike Rowe in Dirty Jobs,
Yes.
It's not a big problem. We actually had to set him up because they weren't happy that he wasn't getting dirty enough.
Oh, you had to make it real dirty, huh?
Exactly. Once we told him about the respirator, and the Tyvek suit and all that kind of stuff, he saw very quickly that he wasn't going to be able to get as dirty as he needed to. So we changed that. I took a 5-pound bag of charcoal and crushed it with a cinder block and closed the damper in the factory-built fireplace. And right before he was ready to open it, I said, "You probably should have your respirator on." And as he put on his respirator and then opened it, of course, black soot went everywhere.
Was that filmed here, or where was
It
that
was,
shot?
yes.
Was it really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's quite an
In
honor.
2005.
Mike Rowe's really been an advocate of the blue-collar worker, hasn't he?
Absolutely. It was flattering to think that one of the first jobs he thought of was that of a chimney sweep.
Yes. It's funny because I started in the industry probably 1980, 81. I had put a couple prefabs in prior to that, but I realized there was a market to learn how to service and repair things, and not just to clean it, but how to fix dampers and
Sure.
come out and reline a chimney. And I learned from a lot of old pros. There wasn't the state-of-the-art technology back then as it is today, and it has gradually grown to be a really serious profession.
Well, that's part of what I'm referring to. People are so willing to share. In this environment, where it's relaxed, everybody can operate at their own pace and find out any information that they want. Having Chris Pryor here is just an amazing thing.
Who is he and what's he do?
Chris Pryor is a mason, and he actually built that fireplace, or at least led the direction of the building of the fireplace with New York granite. It's just amazing.
We've got some pictures of that, and we'll put them on the slideshow. Just so all our guests know out there, we actually try to create a podcast slideshow and upload that to YouTube with a full length. I don't get as many views on it because it is 30 minutes most times, but everybody likes a short snippet, so I
Sure.
get about 2-minute snippets, as many as I can.
If you can, just for fun, throw a little water on it, because the garnet stones inside of that granite look like little rubies.
Well, we'll probably do that right after that and just take a bottle of water and pitch it on there and take some pictures of it.
It's gorgeous. Plus his design, I'm a fireplace advocate, but you have to realize that fireplaces are not always energy losers. They tend to get, in the same way that the chimney sweep tends to get associated with the fireplace gets a bad rap because it's a hole to the outside, right? So energy auditors don't like that. But there are ways that you can temper that. And
are we going to talk about the top-down burn?
Absolutely.
Chris took me to school last week on it, and did I learn a lot?
Isn't that amazing?
Why don't you unpack that for us a little bit?
All right. So the top-down burn, normally those of us who went through Boy Scouts and such learned to build the little log cabin style fire and light the paper in the bottom of the fire. Well, the top-down burn actually works completely opposite. So you put the largest pieces of fuel on the bottom, and then you get them gradually smaller until you've got the tinder at the top. So with one match, you light the tinder that lights the kindling that lights the wood underneath it, because the heat is radiating in all directions.
Okay, you just said something. The tinder to the kindling tinder. Explain what that is, because a lot of us think, well, it's just paper and some twigs.
Well, it could be. One of the things that you can do is you can actually take a paper bag like you would have for a lunch sack.
Sure.
And put some pine cones in it.
Yeah.
And put that on top.
What a great way of doing that.
Yeah, and then you just light the paper, and the pine cones will light, and then it will filter right on down. So you do it once, and it is set, and it burns, and you don't need to add much to it, because as it goes, it gets to the larger pieces of wood.
Yeah, but so many people think just a good idea of taking an old greasy pizza box and lighting that up.
Yeah.
That's not a good idea.
Not a good idea at all. Yeah, we want to keep the fire in the fireplace.
Good term.
Yeah.
Great term. Well, I want to just take a minute here and acknowledge our sponsors here, Mixed Groups, which stands for Mastermind Information Exchange. It's an online program that works with contractors from all over the country. It's basically, it gets lonely at the top, and masterminds kind of talk to each other in a small group of 8 or 9 people. And we just hash out things and pull things together, solving people's problems in business one by one. Again, Mixed Groups stands for Masterminds Information Exchange. My name's Clay Lamb. And if you want to go online at www.mixedgroupsonline.com. Thank you. How did you get in this business?
You know, it was the late 70s. We had just experienced an oil crisis.
Correct.
I was sort of one of these back to nature self-sufficiency type persons, and
Sure.
I read an article in the Mother Earth News.
Mother Earth News.
That said, make $40 an hour sweeping chimneys. And I said, I can do this.
I could do it.
And I also realized that we were a generation removed from people who had operated wood stoves. So those who had were accustomed to using green wood or very large pieces in order to get it to burn through the night. And the modern stoves were so airtight that created a tremendous amount of unspent fuel being engorged in the chimney.
Why is it? Is that because, and it's a loaded question, but I know it's because the flue side is too large?
Well, that's typically the case. If you've got a fireplace, you've got a lot of dilution air mixing with the air required for combustion.
Okay.
But with a wood stove, you can turn those draft air inlets all the way off, and so this fire just smolders, and everything that's not consumed in the fireplace ends up in the chimney.
So that's what that tarry black stuff is.
Exactly. That's right.
And that does burn, doesn't it?
It does indeed. And so, back to your original question, so I got into this business knowing that everything was radically different from anything it had been in the past. And I did a lot of investigation and was asked to speak to a lot of different groups. And
Sure.
so I started doing that. I would go to a DuPont safety meeting, for example.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And, I would also do the Rotary Club, and anybody, home inspectors, all those people are always looking for a speaker. And so the DuPont has safety meetings just like most major corporations. The people were very interested in their fireplaces and not very knowledgeable. So they enjoyed it a lot when I came out to speak.
A new fresh term. They use it every day in their life at the home. Well, at least during the wintertime. We use it for romance. We use it for supplementary heat.
Right.
And just relaxation.
Yep.
It's interesting what people use a fireplace and how.
There's an aesthetic. I think it's just part of who we are, as cavemen were drawn to fire, which reminds me, most of the time our customers want us to tell them that the fireplace is safe. And my response to that is that cavemen knew that open fire in their cave wasn't safe. It can burn you. So what we do as professional chimney sweeps is we reduce the risk as much as possible. Because honestly, if you think about having an open fire in the middle of a building, that's never a good thing. There's always some risk associated with that.
That's a good point here because, a lot of people think a chimney sweep is just someone who comes out and sweeps the chimney, vacuums it out, and makes it clean and safe for next year. But their job is a lot more important than that, isn't it? It's actually to identify problems, offer solutions, and tell them if they can or cannot do it or give them a resource.
Absolutely. A professional chimney sweep is a true educator.
Yes.
And it's not limited to fireplaces because you typically have a furnace flue and you may have a flue serving a water heater. You want to make sure that all of the venting systems are as they should be.
Wait a minute, you're not telling me that each appliance has a separate flue, are you?
In some cases they do, and in some cases they don't, but they should.
That's right. Folks, so you just know, most appliances in today's day and age have a venting system that would be for maybe for the hot water heater, for the furnace, or for the first floor fireplace, and maybe for another floor fireplace. And they should vent, and they should be always continuously be serviced yearly. For what reason, Ashley?
Well, there are several reasons. I mean, it's a snapshot, but the main thing I wanted to communicate is that you have the chimney. You may have more than one chimney, and I want to make sure that people understand that chimney sweeps service more than just wood burning. Mm-hmm. So if you burn oil for heat or domestic hot water, or even if you have natural gas, it's important to have your venting system checked out. To answer your question, there are things other than soot that can get in the chimney.
Like what?
Birds. Squirrels, raccoons, right? Any number of things. We've seen frisbees and ducks and all kinds of stuff in there.
I think we should have started a wall case full of collection of what we found in chimneys. Pretty amazing.
Wouldn't it be interesting?
Yes. And I've even known there's been pulled some skeletons out of those things.
I've been told they have, yes.
You see it on TV, but you never. I hope I never run into it. I don't know what I'd do with it.
Right, you and me both.
Well, Ashley, let's do this. Let's talk a little bit about why a chimney contractor, even maybe someone want to enter into this industry. And it's not just a fly-by-night industry at all anymore. It's a major player in what's going on in home safety, insurance companies, home inspectors. So why don't you unpack that for us a little bit?
So that's a good point. When I first went into business, there were people that thought I was performing an unnecessary service, and people have since realized how very important it is to have their chimney swept and inspected. And frankly, I think if we had focused on the inspection rather than the sweeping, we'd be in a better place today.
Let's peel that back. When you say inspect it, what kind of equipment are we talking about there?
What we call the annual inspection, or a level 1 inspection, we're making sure that the clearances from the appliance to combustibles or from the fireplace to combustibles are what they should be.
So a fireplace is considered an appliance?
Yes.
Right. Okay, I want homeowners to understand that that fireplace by insurance and building centers is viewed as an appliance.
And boy, let's talk about that.
Let's do.
Because there are very few masonry chimneys being built these days. Most of them are factory-built fireplaces.
Like prefab or zero clearance, we call it?
Because they're so much less expensive.
Yes.
You still get the ambiance, but most people don't realize it's not as permanent as a masonry chimney. And
what do you mean by that?
I mean that like your washing machine and your refrigerator as an appliance need to be replaced periodically. So would your factory-built fireplace when it begins to fail.
Well, it's been there for 20 years. I've never had a problem with it. Did you ever hear something like that?
Oh, all the time. And 20 years is pretty much when we start seeing problems.
Yeah.
It really has a lot to do with whether water has been allowed to enter the chimney chase or not.
How would it get in there?
It could come in around the top. There's a pan on the top of the wooden chase. What surrounds the chimney is what I'm referring to as the chase.
Okay.
In a masonry chimney, that's typically brick.
Okay.
But in a factory-built chimney, people don't want to see that round silver thing, looks like a giant bullet going up in the air, so they surround it with a wooden surround that matches the house, and then it's got a pan on the top. If that pan is not tight, then water can leak down through that and get right on the fireplace.
Well, hold that thought. Folks, I want to just take a break here and acknowledge our sponsors out there, and we'll be back in just a minute. I'm going to take a minute here and share with you about some Chimney Saver products that we really like. We have affiliate links to these products. We make a few dollars every time we sell some of this, and there's a lot of homeowners out there that like these products that we offer. Chimney Saver's water repellent comes in two forms. One is a water base, and one is a solvent base. If you have a basic chimney problem or maintenance on a chimney that's starting to look a little problematic, maybe the water base is the proper product for you. If you have stone or another surface that's been treated before, I would highly recommend the solvent base. Both of these have links to us on our show notes. We appreciate it if you support us, and it really helps us a lot. Again, this is Clay Lamb with Ask the Chimney Sweep, and let's jump back into our podcast interview with Ashley Eldridge. Well, Ashley, thank you for holding on here. Let's unpack that a little bit more about water problems and what other problems can go wrong with a prefab fireplace. What happens in the firebox area, the damper? What could happen in there?
If you see rust around the damper of a factory-built fireplace, you know that there's a lot of rust on the body of that box that you cannot see.
Are you talking like behind the wall?
Exactly.
So water's come down the pipe and maybe around the whole encasing of the fire box.
Exactly.
itself.
So if you see rust from the inside, there's typically much more that you cannot see.
Okay.
Now, in the case of a masonry chimney, we want to be sure that the water isn't being absorbed by the bricks and then freezing and causing the chimney to deteriorate.
When you say freezing, what does a freeze do to it?
When water freezes, it expands.
Okay.
And if the brick is very porous, it'll absorb that water.
Kind of like a sponge.
Exactly. And then if you were to freeze that, you would find that it would expand.
Sure.
And it causes the bricks to pop the face off. We call that spalling.
You know, a lot of people don't realize how many freeze-thaw cycles we go through in each city, and it can be 50, 60, 100 freeze-thaws. You don't think of those 1 and 2 nights, but you multiply that by 10, 15, 20 years. That's a lot of freeze-thaw cycles.
And you know, that's really important that you mention that, because here in Indianapolis,
Yeah.
farther north, once it gets cold, it stays cold. Farther south, it doesn't get as cold as it does here. So we're in an area that experiences more freeze-thaw than many parts of the country, and we see damaged chimneys as a result.
I heard a number of Jerry Eisenhower, a friend of ours, a mutual friend, he's at CBC coach, and he had mentioned, I think there's 120 in the lower part, or the northern part of Texas, of freeze-thaw, which really just flabbergasted me that you'd have that many in a southern state like that.
Well, they have a lot of ice issues.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah. I lived in Texas, and the worst thing is
Where
to have...
haven't you lived? Virginia, Indianapolis?
I was born in Virginia. I moved to Kentucky, and then I moved to Florida, and then I moved to Austin, Texas, and then I came back to Virginia, and then I moved to Indiana.
You're rather nomadic, aren't you?
Yeah.
You have a suitcase next to your bed, I'll bet.
Exactly, and that's without being a military family.
Very good. Let's talk about that back wall, because a lot of people, actually I know, they have this back wall, they see a hairline crack. And it could have been from overheating, it could have been from a log being thrown in there. What could they do, and when should they do that repair on that back wall?
So that's a good point, because that's probably the thing you see most often with these factory-built fireplaces. So that damage can occur if somebody heaves a piece of wood in and it hits that castable refractory that you're referring to.
It's kind of like a panel.
It is a panel, yep.
Okay.
There's one for the rear, one for either side, and typically one for the floor.
Okay.
So if you throw the wood in there, then it's going to break. Another way that it will break is if you have a brand new one and you build a really bright fire. So the first couple fires that you build in there should be relatively small, because there's a fair amount of moisture in those panels.
So you're really seasoning that or prepping that. What would be the term? I guess seasoning.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Interesting.
So that's where some people damage it. Nobody does it intentionally, I don't think. But if you see that the material has all fallen away and the diamond mesh that's embedded in that material is showing, that's an indication that you've been burning a fire that's much too hot.
They have to take out the whole fireplace. What needs to be done there?
No, actually, those panels are a replaceable component.
Let me ask a loaded question. Who could do that for our customer?
I would think a CSIA certified chimney sweep could do that.
That was a leading question, folks, and I wanted him to share that, because there's a lot of guys get a lot of training, and there's a lot of guys out there that aren't getting training. I call Bubba in the red truck when he pulls up your house and he's scaring you to death. He's probably not the right guy in your house, and you should go to the National Chimney Sweep Guild on a sweep finder. Let's tell our listeners where they can find someone to do of this caliber.
So if you're looking for someone who is certified by the Chimney Safety Institute of America, you would go to www.csia.org. You can input your zip code and you'll get a display of all the people within the range that you prefer.
It doesn't get any easier than that, folks. You can go on Google and B&B and Andrew List and get some ideas, but those credentials carry a lot of weight in the industry. They've been trained, they understand, they've been tested, and they get an idea what the heck's going on in this industry. And it's a great way of finding somebody in your neighborhood to go to that sweeps finder and load in your zip code, like Ashley said, and find somebody and have them out to talk to you, or get a conversation on the phone, and you might read something on the webpage and get an idea of some of their customers. But I think you're going to find the right people at the right time for your house. Ashley, thank you so much for stopping by here at Ask the Chimney Sweep, and it's been a hoot, and congratulations on another very successful sweeps week right here in Plainfield, Indiana. Well, my friends, that's about it for the day. Thanks so much for joining us today on Ask the Chimney Sweep. My friends, leave us a message. Leave us an idea of what you want to hear, how we could solve some problem for you. Folks, we love it when you contact us on AsktheChimneySweep.com. Again, thanks a lot for joining us. This is Clay Lamb for Ask the Chimney Sweep.
Thanks so much for stopping by. Please like and subscribe for more quality content like this. And remember, it's always a great day for learning.